I call David Garrett.
Mr Speaker, I rise to lend our support, the ACT Party's support to this bill, and to echo pretty much the comments all around the chamber. And in my short time here, which parallels that of Mr Dr Graham, I think I too can say that it was the best example of parliamentary democracy that I have seen in my time here. And I don't think it will be treading on any toes, I hope not, to say that there were lessons learned all around the House and in the wider precinct last night. What should have been a straightforward procedural change to the law threatened to cause or potentially cause some very serious damage to the integrity of our justice system. And I wish again to echo others and pay tribute to those on all sides of the House who argued passionately throughout the committee stage to make some very important amendments to the bill, and the obvious one to exclude trials from the ambit of AVL without the defendant's consent. And I also wish to put on record, I think most members, Mr Speaker, would not regard me as an obsequious person, but I found David Parker's speech truly inspiring, and I think it was probably the best speech, or certainly one of the best speeches that I have heard in my time here. The substantive change, of course, Mr Speaker, as others have said, that needed fixing and was fixed in the final analysis, was the defendant's right to appear at their own trial. And I won't repeat the reasons that is so important. Others have done it as well or better than I could. A defendant must and always has been considered innocent until proven guilty. That is a foundation block of our justice system. And as effectively the highest court in the land, Mr Speaker, it is the job of this House to ensure that nothing goes through this place that undermines that fundamental right. And for this reason, I join the chorus of praise for the Minister of Justice. He said, and I take him at his word, that he was persuaded by the quality of the debate, and it certainly was an excellent debate, that it was necessary to take the most unusual step of making a handwritten amendment. So for those who think, both within and without perhaps of this place, that parliamentary democracy is out of fashion, I would like to think this happening in the last 24 hours has restored some faith in that. Obviously, the crucial section, as it now reads, is that AVL must not be used for the appearance of the defendant in a trial that determines his or her guilt or innocence unless the defendant consents to that use. If the defendant thinks they stand a better chance of being found not guilty by being in the courtroom where the judge and the jury can see their body language more effectively, or vice versa, then it must be their right to remain or to appear in person at their trial. As others on the other side have noted, though, Mr Speaker, it wasn't just for the defendant's sake, important as their rights are. In fact, their rights are paramount. It was Leanne Dalzell who said during the Committee of the Whole that many victims and their families prefer that the defendant is forced to face them in person. And I note in passing that, as I understand it, I've not had the pleasure of witnessing Mariah Justice, but I understand that the face-to-face aspect of the victim confronting the wrongdoer is a big part of that process. It's important for victims to gain a sense of closure, having the defendant in court, hearing their victim impact statements in person if they're not able to read them, having the wrongdoer see what damage they've caused can both be therapeutic for victims and sadly less often, but certainly one hopes occasionally a wake-up call for those who have caused them hurt. Mr Speaker, I've just drawn a line through the next section of my speech because I was going to score a bit of a point, but I've decided since everyone else has been so magnanimous, I shall continue in that same vein. Mr Speaker, what this bill is a recognition of the role of modern technology and what it has to offer us. As usual, the corporate world is streets ahead of the public sector when it comes to using technological advances to increase efficiency and achieve better outcomes. Rather than flying around the world for a meeting, with AVL one can sit in the Auckland office and negotiate substantial business deals in London. It's cheaper, and as Gareth Hughes said in his speech, it's better for the environment, if one believes in the evils of air miles and carbon footprints, and we all have some divergence of opinion on that. Governments are often slow to adopt best practice from the business sector, so in my view, Mr Speaker, it's high time the justice system properly embraced and used the benefits of AVL. We have a justice system, I think all parties would agree, that for a long time has been clogged. Delays in trials can reach more than, I understand, 2 years, which is entirely unsatisfactory on a whole heap of levels. Increasing the use of video links at earlier stages of proceedings can only help but speed up that process. And that is beneficial for everyone in the system, criminals, victims, and indeed litigants in civil trials. Anything that will reduce the amount of time waiting for justice to be delivered must be a good thing, so long as justice is delivered fairly, and that was the crux of the debate last night. Thanks to the last-minute courageous amendment by Minister Power, this bill does just that, and we are delighted to support it along with every other party. Thank you.
Te ora, Flavel.